Zane Clodfelter with Otters TV. Final time for 2018. Zoe is our camera operator. Zoe, can we get a panoramic here of Bosse Field and basically show you what the off season looks like? There it is. The off season at Bosse Field. Would you just look at it?
Look at it.
Would you just look at it? So, yeah, it's our season wrap up. Evansville, of course, being swept by the Washington Wild Things. 3-0 in the Frontier League Division Series. The Otters went 51-45 in the regular season. If you count the postseason 0-3, so it'd be 51-48. And really, I think, kind of fitting for Evansville because after a really hot start and a good early part of June before all of those players went away to affiliated baseball, Evansville was hovering around 6-7 games under or over 500. And then from that point on until basically the last week in the season, Evansville really was a 500 baseball team.
Yeah, they definitely, and the team acknowledges that themselves, especially in July, they were a below average team at the time. They did not play well. Kind of like this team was heading toward the pits, if you will. But they put together a great August, got back to 500, and even finished out the season above 500. And I think the fact that this team was able to recover, because I mean, again, the whole month of July, a little bit toward the end of June, I mean, this team just was not playing well. And the fact that the Otters were able to get to 50 wins as their mark this year, I think that says a lot about the way this team grinded out and even some of the late additions, how much they were able to contribute to help get this team to where they were.
No, it's pretty amazing. If you look at 2017, the Otters went 52-44, so 51-45 after all of the it seemed like shuffling of the roster, all the player departures, whether it be affiliated baseball, and we even had this year a couple of players just decide, hey, don't want to play baseball anymore, had some retire, Adeno Spingola and Toby Thomas being those two. Still, to finish just one game off the pace last year that had a ton of key guys like Josh Allen, John Schultz, Dane Phillips, I think says a lot about how they were able to close the regular season.
Yeah, it says a lot, and which is important because in August, closing the regular season, you're playing West Division teams. So the fact that the Otters were able to play their best month of baseball, at the right time against West Division opponents says a lot, again, about the character of this team. And also because, I mean, let's face it, in terms of the numbers, which, again, could be overlooked at sometimes, but the statistics, they were a little bit down at times this year. I mean, the home run numbers were not there that we saw from a season ago.
You're right there, yes.
The pitching staff, obviously, kind of a little bit more up and down than I'm sure that they wanted to be this year. And it's just the fact that, again, last year we saw record-breaking numbers in 2017. This year we did not really see that. But yeah, somehow this team was able to figure it out and again, just play clutch baseball down the stretch of the regular season.
Yeah, no, very, very impressive. Let's speak real quick offensively. You mentioned the home run numbers. Jeff Gardner still put up pretty big power numbers batting out at the cleanup spot, but it wasn't his, record-breaking single-season home run total that he had in 17. I thought Travis Harrison was also a legitimate bat as a DH. He also spent time in the infield, the outfield, wherever Andy could put him. Ryan Long, I thought, was a guy, he just naturally kind of goes under the radar because he's very soft-spoken. He doesn't like the attention. I used to have to beg him to be on Otters TV, and he would oblige. But
well, maybe because you asked him about the whole hot dog as a sandwich thing.
Well, that's because he said he didn't know what to talk about. I'm like, oh, well, I can give us something to talk about. And then I asked him that, and we had an actual pretty decent interview if you go back in our archives and watch that. But aside from those guys, was there anybody else that kind of stood out to you from a positive standpoint in terms of batting and offensive production?
Well, first, just to build off what you just said, I mean, Travis Harrison had a great year. There's no doubt about that. He finished his season strong with a 300 average. But honestly, in my opinion, I think Ryan Long could arguably be the team MVP for this year because, one, his power numbers led the team. It's a significant increase in improvement from last year, though he was only with us for part of the year last year.
Yeah.
And then obviously, again, kind of just before his injury, what he does to get on base, from the top of the order, whether first or second spot in the lineup, the walks, the average, I mean, pretty much everything was there. And again, the RBI totals, again, from the top of the lineup, whether it be first or second behind either David Cronin or before, I think it just says a lot about his value to this team. And again, as another utility player, just like Travis Harrison, played third base or in the outfield. Again, Ryan Long, I thought, had a very impressive year, and I hope he returns to next year's club. A lot of value there. But for this year, I mean, there's so many players who.
I thought David Cronin.
I mean, David Cronin comes to mind definitely just because, I mean, he started every game that he did play in.
Yeah, and Brant Whiting too. And I didn't mention those guys originally because they were mid-season acquisitions, so they weren't here.
Right. I mean, it's really hard to single a guy out because there were so many players who had sensational seasons. From a pitching standpoint, Randy Wynn started this year in the bullpen, became one of the top starters, if not the top starter in the rotation by the end of the season. Tyler Beardsley made a similar transition. I thought he had a pretty good year.
Yeah, so going to the pitching staff.
Once he got to the pitching rotation to start, I mean, there's a lot of guys.
Yeah, real quick before we kind of transition to the pitching aspect of it, I did feel like, and probably one of the big reasons why Evansville was able to make a postseason run is the defense on the infield did get a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
J.J. Gould might have been just adjusting to Evansville, maybe adjusting to the type of infield that Evansville has. A little rough early on, but really thought his defense at shortstop really shored things up over the last 2 weeks of the season.
I totally agree. Especially from a shortstop position. Like I said, I mean, might have been just some nerves or just kind of settled to the surface here in Evansville the first few games for him. But after that, very quick on his feet, as well as being very light on his feet to get to balls deep in the hole. Make some sensational plays, worked well with David Cronin up the middle as their double play partner, in the middle. So again, I thought the defense definitely shored itself up for the end of the season. And of course, it seemed like once Carlos came back, even though again he didn't have a home run, he didn't really have the RBIs. It seemed like having him at first base also kind of changed the defensive look as well.
Yeah, and offensively with those big swings, scaring the opposing pitchers because man, if he ever connected into one, it would hit the top of the Crawford building.
A fun batting practice to watch.
No, it was. I always liked watching Otters batting practice. That being part of my pregame routine. Real quick, let's shift to the pitching side. First for the starters, you kind of mentioned Randy Wynn, who arguably was Evansville's best starter of the second half of the year. Tyler Beardsley made the transition from bullpen to a starter. Austin Nicely was a guy that had some really good performances, and others I'm sure he wanted back, and he told us that in Otters TV interviews. But I think the biggest thing about Austin, and maybe why I was semi-disappointed, this is an editorial take, the thoughts and opinions of yours truly do not reflect the opinions of the Evansville Otters LLC. I was a little disappointed that Austin Nicely did not start Game 3 because he had been a guy that I thought was a reliable enough guy that kind of warranted that start. He ended up coming in relief and pitched really well.
Well, I think the mindset of the coaching staff, and again, we have no idea what their strategy truly was.
No idea. Yeah, we're just talking.
If the Otters win Game 3, who starts Game 4? And I think that's that's the fact that when hopefully in Game 3 the Otters have the lead and they have a little momentum, they kind of feel comfortable where they're at in Game 3. But at that point, especially after that 5-run first, it's all hands on deck, and you just got to go up there to try and salvage your season at that point to avoid being eliminated. Because I believe Nicely probably would have been the guy made in Game 4. Then obviously, if it gets to Game 5, Randy Wynn goes back out there after we saw him in Game 1.
Yeah, see, again, our thoughts and opinions do not reflect the Evansville Otters LLC. The thing,
and the other thing about
I would have flipped it though. I would have put Austin Nicely Game 3. Go with Hensley Game 4. If you need a bullpen game, knowing that Randy Wynn's potentially there for Game 5, then you can use the quick hook like they did in Game 3 and Game 4. I don't know. Hindsight is 20/20, Preston.
It definitely is.
If Ty Hensley would have pitched great on Friday in Game 3, we wouldn't be talking about this, and there's a good chance,
Well, I mean, let's give Ty Hensley some credit though, because when he came back from his stint on the DL, he pitched some solid baseball. And again, at times, and I think overall throughout the whole year, you could say walks were kind of an issue for this team at times.
Oh yes.
Not just Ty Hensley, but I mean also Nicely. I mean the walks were an issue at times. But the way he came back with confidence from that last stint on the injured reserve list in August, I mean he pitched some great games. Obviously part of that combined no-hitter.
Oh yes.
Matt Chavarria, and again and got some quality wins, some quality innings. So, I mean, there was a lot of reason to be confident with him going in Game 3 from the coaching staff standpoint because he was throwing, and pitching the best that he had all year with the starts and appearances that he had.
Real quick, Tyler Bale also started, moved to the bullpen later in the year.
Which I think his experience in the bullpen helped a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, the bullpen, especially with some of the moves going from the bullpen to the rotation, At times, obviously, some roster moves with the bullpen, some injuries as well. Putting Tyler Vale in the bullpen provided the experience that I think it was kind of missing a little bit out there in the bullpen, because those were a lot of young guys. Basically, most of the bullpen was first-year guys here in Evansville.
And I thought Matt Chavarria came in, the University of Southern Indiana alum, had played in the Frontier League with a couple different teams before, came in right before the transaction deadline, really gave Max Peterson, Andy McCauley, a guy that they could have faith in, get innings. He really only had one bad outing against River City. And Garrett Harris was another reliable guy that, again, a little under the radar, Garrett Harris, but no, a lot of talented bullpen guys. It's going to be interesting to see who comes back, both in the field and then offensively, and then on the pitching side of things. There are going to be a couple of guys who will age out. I think Tyler Vale being one of them. At least it feels like it, because it seems like Tyler has, been here for at least 3 years, in addition to his stints when he's left to go to affiliated baseball.
Right.
Some guys may just elect to simply retire, hang it up, which, I mean, it's their life, so whatever is in their best interest, we fully support that as well. So very interesting. I think there's going to be a lot more question marks with this offseason as opposed to last offseason, because we kind of knew going into last offseason, Dane Phillips and John Schultz are going to leave.
You know who the guys were that were going to either age out or...
Yes. Well, where there might be just some guys that may still be eligible to come back in terms of the age situation, but just might want to either start coaching baseball themselves or find a new career path, even though all the players we've talked to just really loved it here.
Oh, yeah, a lot of the players loved it here, and, a lot of them were kind of... Obviously, you get to August, the dog days of summer, a lot of guys, body starts wearing tear, you get tired, and you're kind of ready for it to go home and enjoy an off-season, but now that you look back, it's kind of sad that it's over and didn't quite finish it off with the cherry on top of the championship.
I wanted another ring.
I wanted my first.
Yeah, he wanted his first.
I came a year
second.
too late for 2016, but yeah, that would have been nice. But you mentioned, since you brought up Dane Phillips, that was another area of the field that kind of has some question marks. Catcher, who was going to be the backstop for the Otters this year.
Yeah. And Rizzatello did a great job. Michael Rizzatello.
And you already mentioned earlier in this interview, Brent Whiting, offensively, and also by the end of the season, his defense had improved. Beginning of the season, we saw Luis Gregorio. His offense was definitely beneficial.
He just struggled. Struggled throwing.
Yeah, because his 280 average in his offense was definitely there.
Oh yeah.
So
and Brent Whiting, I think, was the complete package in terms of catching. Rizzatello had a phenomenal arm, which we saw night in and night out. Real quick, because I know Zoe's arms are getting tired. If you had to put a grade on the year for Evansville, what would a grade be?
All in all, I think you would have to consider it. Depends how strict you are, but I would give it like an A-, just because usually that A-, if you're in school, it means, okay, you might have had one little setback or two, the void, where you couldn't get that A+, but you bounced back. And that's what this team did this year. They might have had a little setback mid-season, but they bounced back. And again, getting to 50 wins, I think says a lot.
I wish you would have been one of my college instructors when I was an undergrad, because I'm going to go with the B-, and the B-, really the same reasons that you said. Still made the postseason. It was difficult in making the postseason at times because, man, our last homestand here, I think all of us in the press box, even John Stanley, right? We're like, man, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a battle. The Otters had just so many problems winning on the road and just got hot at the right time. So I'll say B- because, hey, if I got a B- on a test, I was going home pretty happy, and that might even make the fridge.
Right, might even make the fridge. But again, you always got to remember, though, the Otters, they were one of the last four because they were in the playoffs. Out of 12 teams, to be one of the last four to still be playing into September, it's just an admirable effort that they get to get there.
And the Frontier League, real quick, is set up in a way where you don't have a lot of these dynasty teams that just repeatedly go to the postseason. Evansville has been able to do that. So these rules that the Frontier League has in place, where you have to get rid of players by once they turn 28, kind of makes the rosters for each and every team reload, and it comes upon your manager and your coaching staff to replace them. It shows you how good of a staff we have here, because 3 out of the last 4 years, asterisks, because I'll go ahead and say it, I was here in 2015. Should be 4 in a row. Where all the other teams we've seen, maybe they make it once or twice in a row, and then
Yeah, I mean,
they're rebuilding.
for this year, Evansville and Washington, when they faced off, they were the only 2 teams who had been there last year out of the 4. And like you said, just continue to build on consecutive postseason appearances. Like I said, credit to the coaching staff, which I think, based on their reach in terms of the baseball community and across geographically the nation, because we know that they're scouting in different areas, they can pull a lot of different talent based on what our coaching staff and who they know, and some of their connections that they have. But also not just in terms of consecutive postseason appearances, like I said, 3 out of 4 with an asterisk, but also just in terms of winning seasons. I believe it's would it be 5 in a row this year, last year, 2016, 2015, 2014,
and 2013 as well, because 2013 they went 51-45, the same record they had this year. They just didn't make the postseason.
I mean, to put together a streak like that of above 500 baseball, or 500 or better baseball, should I say, that's tough to do. Not only just in terms of the Frontier League, but in baseball in general, that's tough to do.
Yeah, and 2012, by the way, I have so much Otters numbers in my head, was what, 45 win season, very close. The only season I've been here was 11, where they were kind of in the basement, 18 games under. They only won 39 games. Since then, it's been 45 wins at least. So we have a lot of people to thank. We're going to do it quickly. Andy McCauley and his entire coaching staff, they were very open and willing to let us chat with them and their players on Otters TV. From the moment the players arrived back in April during spring training, allowed us to do something that literally no other Frontier League team does, and that's give fans access to the players, give you some inside behind the scenes stuff. So to Andy and all the coaching staff, job well done. Thanks so much for your cooperation. To all of our fans, and we've gotten emails, calls, messages during our Gamecast on Otters Digital Network, powered by Perkemeyer & Kahn. Parents, players, just random baseball fans who wanted to see the ballpark. Thanks for reaching out and showing your appreciation for Otters TV and everything that our entire crew, it's not just Preston and I, it's a whole core group of people. We had, 8 or 9 people working ODN on any respective game day. So it really takes a village to really bring Otters baseball out into the world outside of this brick facade. So really appreciate it of everybody, and then the front office too, because it starts with John Stanley at the top and goes all the way down. Their support as well. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's definitely it's been a fun year nonetheless. Great staff to work with, like you said. Everybody who helps with Otters TV, including our different filmers behind the scenes, including Zoe today. All of my staff for ODN who helped put it together. A couple of them took on new endeavors during the middle of the season, but that's okay. We had a great staff, and a staff that learned and picked it up real quickly in order to bring our fans live coverage from Bossy Field and with our ODN feed, and like I said, just our front office staff, including Bill Bussing.
Oh yeah,
the Bussing family.
The Bussing family, Bill and Phyllis both.
Yeah. Thanks
for allowing us the opportunity to do what we love to do, and that's work in this ballpark. Sam Jelinek, thanks for everything you did, Sam.
Stay safe in North Carolina.
Yes, thoughts and prayers with you with Florence impacting that area. Donovan, Keith, Zoe, Elsbeth, Emmy, Sam, all of our live studio audience members, Parker. We had such a fun time. So with that, Preston,
Is it time?
It's time. 2018's over, so God willing, we'll see you in 2019. He's Preston Leinenbach. Eugene, I'm Zane Clodfelter. This has been Otters TV.